Imagine pulling up to a busy gas station in 1963. The driver in the next lane pops open his fuel cap, bypasses the gasoline pump entirely, and pours a bottle of cheap kerosene, peanut oil, or even French perfume directly into his tank. He turns the ignition key, and instead of the familiar rumbling roar of a traditional American V8 engine, you hear a high-pitched, terrifying jet turbine spooling up to 45,000 RPM. The car glides away effortlessly, without a single engine vibration, leaving behind the faint smell of roasted peanuts. This was not a Hollywood prop from a science fiction movie. This was a real, fully operational, street-legal production car engineered by Chrysler. It was meant to revolutionize the global automotive world, eliminate pistons, spark plugs, and radiator fluid forever, and give every American family a piece of the jet age right in their own driveway. Yet, just a few short years later, almost every single one of these incredible machines was rounded up, loaded onto flatbed trucks, and fed directly into industrial crushers under mysterious circumstances. How did a vehicle that could run on tequila outlast traditional internal combustion engines and captivate an entire nation vanish into thin air? And why did the United States government play a decisive role in wiping it off the face of the earth? To understand how Chrysler built a jet car, you have to rewind to the post-World War II era. In the 1950s, America was deeply obsessed with aviation, rocketry, and space travel. Tailfins were growing on Cadillacs, chrome was everywhere, and every major automaker was trying to capture the futuristic energy of the jet age. But while Ford and General Motors were busy welding fake jet intakes onto heavy steel body panels, Chrysler was doing something far bolder. They were quietly working on putting a real jet engine under the hood. The driving force behind this mad experiment was a brilliant, relentless engineer named George Huebner, often referred to as the father of the Chrysler turbine. Huebner believed that the internal combustion piston engine was fundamentally flawed. It had hundreds of slamming moving parts, pistons hammering up and down, valves slapping, camshafts turning, and coolant leaking. It was inefficient, mechanically complex, and prone to constant wear. A gas turbine engine, on the other hand, was elegant simplicity. It had only about 20% of the moving parts of a standard V8 engine. There were no pistons, no radiator, no liquid coolant, no spark plugs, and no oil changes in the traditional sense. A turbine engine rotated smoothly on a single central axis, producing zero engine vibration. At idle, it sounded like a miniature Boeing 707 waiting on an airport runway. At full throttle, it delivered instantaneous, endless torque. Huebner spent over 2 decades in Chrysler Highland Park research facility testing exotic space-age alloys capable of enduring continuous temperatures over 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. By 1962, after 4 generations of experimental prototypes, Chrysler felt they had cracked the code. They were ready to build a fleet of real turbine cars and hand them over to everyday citizens across America to prove that the piston engine was officially obsolete. Chrysler did not just drop a turbine engine into an existing Dodge Dart or Plymouth Fury. They wanted a car that looked as exotic and futuristic as the revolutionary power plant beneath its hood. So they reached across the Atlantic Ocean to Turin, Italy, and hired the legendary coach builder Carrozzeria Ghia. Hand-built by Italian artisans, the body of the 1963 Chrysler Turbine Car was a masterwork of automotive art. Finished in a striking metallic paint known as turbine bronze, with a black vinyl roof, the car looked like a spacecraft on wheels. Up front, twin turbine blade headlight bezels mimicked jet air intakes. At the rear, massive horizontal exhaust outlets resembled the glowing afterburners of a fighter jet. Inside, the luxury cabin featured a full-length center copper console, styled like a turbine shaft, complete with authentic jet-style vacuum gauges and rich, genuine leather bucket seats. Underneath the sculpted hood sat the heart of the beast, the 4th-generation Chrysler A831 gas turbine engine. It produced 130 horsepower, which might not sound mind-boggling by modern standards, but it generated an astounding 425 foot-pounds of torque at 0 RPM. That meant the instant you touched the accelerator pedal, the car surged forward, with seamless, unbroken acceleration. Because it had no liquid cooling system, it could not overheat in heavy summer traffic. In freezing sub-zero winters, it started instantly on the first turn of the key and blew scorching hot cabin air within seconds. But its most unbelievable feature was its unquenchable appetite for almost any combustible liquid. Standard piston engines are notoriously picky about what you feed them. Put diesel in a gasoline engine, and you destroy the entire fuel injection system. But a gas turbine engine operates on a completely different physical principle. It compresses incoming air, mixes it with fuel, and ignites it continuously in a central combustion chamber. As long as a liquid burns cleanly and flows through a fuel line, the Chrysler turbine engine could run on it without missing a single beat. During rigorous factory testing, Chrysler engineers ran the car on diesel fuel, unleaded gasoline, kerosene, military-grade JP4 jet fuel, and even soybean oil. But the ultimate test of its multi-fuel capability occurred during an international promotional tour in Mexico. The president of Mexico at the time, Adolfo López Mateos, was openly skeptical of Chrysler claims that the car could digest any combustible liquid. To test the engineers, he personally handed them a bottle of premium Mexican tequila. Chrysler technicians poured the tequila straight into the fuel tank, adjusted nothing, and started the engine. The turbine spooled up instantly, idling smoothly as the subtle scent of agave wafted from the exhaust pipes. On another occasion in Europe, a French guest poured a bottle of Chanel No. 5 perfume into the tank, and the car drove off smelling like a high-end Paris boutique. For everyday American drivers, this multi-fuel capability promised total energy independence. If gasoline supplies were disrupted, you could simply fill your tank with kerosene or diesel from a local farm supply store and keep driving smoothly without any mechanical damage. Chrysler was so confident in the turbine engine that they launched one of the most audacious public test programs in automotive history. Between October 1963 and January 1966, Chrysler built 55 turbine cars. 5 were kept for internal engineering, while 50 were distributed to 203 everyday American citizens across 48 states. These were not professional test drivers or automotive journalists. They were doctors, teachers, plumbers, housewives, and factory workers, selected from over 30,000 public applications. Each person was given a brand new Chrysler Turbine Car for 3 months, completely free of charge. Chrysler paid for all maintenance, insurance, and repairs. All the driver had to do was fill the tank and drive it in their daily life. Over the course of the 3-year program, these 203 households accumulated over 1 million test miles in severe snowstorms, desert heat, stop-and-go city traffic, and long cross-country road trips. Local gas station attendants across small-town America were stunned when drivers pulled up and asked for kerosene or diesel for a luxury coupe. The public response was overwhelming enthusiasm. Drivers loved the buttery smooth ride, the instant winter heating, the lack of tune-ups, and the rock-star attention they received at every stoplight. People would literally follow the turbine cars into shopping center parking lots just to hear the whistling jet sound and ask questions. By all accounts, Chrysler had scored a historic victory. Piston engines were about to become museum relics, and Chrysler was poised to dominate the global auto industry. So why did these incredible cars never make it to local dealerships? As the test program wrapped up in 1966, dark clouds began gathering on the horizon. Despite its brilliance, the turbine engine faced 2 major technical hurdles. First, while fuel economy was respectable on highways, it was poor in heavy city traffic because the turbine had to spin at high speeds just to idle. Second, as environmental awareness grew in the late 1960s, the United States government established the Environmental Protection Agency and passed the Clean Air Act. Early turbine engines burned extremely hot, which created high levels of nitrogen oxide emissions, a pollutant the government began heavily regulating. Chrysler spent millions developing 6th and 7th generation turbine engines to fix these issues, making massive breakthroughs by the late 1970s. But then came the final, fatal blow. By 1979, Chrysler was facing financial collapse due to economic recession and mismanaged product lines. To survive, Chrysler approached the United States Congress for a landmark $1.5 billion federal loan guarantee. The government agreed to rescue the automaker, but federal officials attached brutal conditions. The Department of Transportation and Treasury mandated that Chrysler eliminate all speculative, non-essential research programs and focus strictly on building high-efficiency, small piston cars. The government effectively ordered Chrysler to kill the turbine engine program as a condition of receiving the bailout money. But what happened to the original 55 handmade Ghia cars was even more heartbreaking. Because the bodies were hand-built in Italy, Chrysler had imported them under a temporary United States customs bond. Under federal tax law, once the test program concluded, Chrysler faced a choice: pay exorbitant import tariffs on every single car, or prove to the government that they had been destroyed. To avoid massive tax penalties and satisfy government regulators, Chrysler ordered 46 of the 55 turbine cars to be crushed into scrap metal. Heartbroken Chrysler employees watched as giant mechanical claws crumpled the copper-painted Italian masterpieces into metal cubes. Only 9 cars survived the crushing mandated by the government. 6 were deactivated and donated to major American museums, while 3 were retained by Chrysler in running condition. One of these functional survivors eventually found its home in the private garage of legendary car collector Jay Leno, who still takes his working copper turbine car out onto California highways today. Ironically, Chrysler Turbine research did not die completely. The defense division of Chrysler took the knowledge pioneered by George Huebner and used it to help design the gas turbine engine that powers the United States military M1 Abrams battle tank today. The Chrysler Turbine Car remains one of the greatest what-if stories in global automotive engineering history. A vehicle that promised unlimited fuel choices, zero engine vibration, and jet-age technology was crushed not by mechanical failure or lack of public demand, but by bureaucratic tax regulations and federal bailout mandates. It stands as a haunting reminder of a time when American engineers dared to put a jet engine in a family car and almost changed the automotive world forever.